For quite a while, economists have raised the alarm over the country's borrowing trend, leaving it with debt burden taking its toll on its revenue, where 98% is used to service the country's debt in the first 5 months of 2021. A recent report by the Debt Management Office shows that Nigeria's loans from China, France, Japan, India, and Germany rose from $1.6 billion as of December 31st, 2015 to $4.06 billion as of December 31st, 2020. Signifying an increase of 144.58% in 5 years. Without major structural policy reforms and a revenue-driven fiscal consolidation to stimulate private investments and promote growth, there will be limited resources to fund the budget and provide those infrastructural facilities that stimulate investments and drive long-term growth. I've introduced him earlier as the Manager Tax Regulatory Services, Deloitte and Touch, Mr. Joseph Alatishe. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Alatishe. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Alatishe. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, Mr. Alatishe. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon too.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Yes, let's start with the debt burden. In all of it, how does it come to you? It seems to be scary for us. Can you take us through where we stand at the moment, both domestic and even globally? We have a lot of figures trickling in. What do you make of Nigeria's debt at the moment?
Thank you. Yeah, the word scary comes to mind. And when you listen to the statistics you started with in the introduction, I think it's scary to even the average man, and especially good meaning people for the future of Nigeria. When you look at the sustainability of this, we've had deficits for some time. The last the budget for the current year, we had a deficit of almost 6 trillion naira that had to be financed in a way. And the number one way that comes to mind, or the major way that comes to mind, is through borrowings. At the end of the day, we need to spend. If we do not spend, we cannot have the economic growth we want. And then the next question is, what are we spending on? How do we get the funds to spend? When do we start reaping the rewards for these spendings, such that we do not continually have to borrow? When do we get the revenues? You said in the first 5 months from the budget implementation report, it shows that about 98, the ratio of the debt servicing fees to revenues for those first 5 months was about 98%. That's scary. So we need to grow the revenues.
So let's talk about this benchmark that they keep telling us. We journalists, we ask questions, and they'll tell us that there is a benchmark by the IMF, and Nigeria is yet to get to that level. If we are not, why do we not have to worry about this present debt situation, or where we stand with regards to debt?
Yeah, it's something about it's one thing to reach a destination. It's another thing to ensure you're not finding your way towards that destination, and that you are going
All right, there are not network issues. Seems to be really worrisome today. We'll try to connect again with Mr. Joseph Alatishe to take us through what he makes of this debt burden that everyone keeps talking about.
I mean, assets we need. We cannot stimulate the revenues we need.
Go ahead. We lost you. We lost connection at a point.
Oh, sorry. So can you hear me now?
Clearly, please.
Okay. So I was trying to look at the issues from both sides to say we do not want to get to that finish line of a benchmark and say that we do not want to keep on going towards that trend. We want to reverse the trend to ensure that we are going towards more towards a safety line. But we cannot do all these things without stimulating the economy. We can only stimulate the economy through expenditures, through investment in infrastructures and in performing assets. So the important question is, what are these expenditures being invested in? What's the timeline to receiving the gains of these investments? And looking at the other side, when are we going to start getting an increase in our revenue levels? These are the important questions that we need to answer as a nation.
True. True. I think I'm also thinking along that line. What will be the economic implications if we continue to borrow at this rate? If this debt, this sustained, what do you think will be the economic impact on the country?
Of course, it's going to significantly affect us negatively. We'll get to a point where we will not be able to service our loans as at when due. We'll not be able to meet our obligations. When you get even into those situations, you get worse credits when you need to get more loans to stimulate your economy. You default on your obligations. You get creditors coming to decide how you spend as a nation, giving you benchmarks and austerity measures. We do not want to get there. And that's why, as a country, we need to look at all aspects of how we want to stimulate the economy. I listened earlier in your program today to the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. That's one place we need to get it right, because the manufacturing levels in Nigeria must increase. And it's only when we stimulate the economy in all these ways that we can get to that finish line that we want.
Now, what about the argument? There's also a school of thought, or some believe, or they've argued, that if we borrow for productive purposes, not to pay salaries, not to service running costs, not for, that it's better than borrowing for, that it's more borrowing for productive use is, of course, better than just borrowing for just spending. Now, what would you say about this? Do you also agree to that? And if that's the way to go, what about some projects that we are into, the China projects or the rails and all of this? Some are kind of productive, if we could use that word. I think I agree.
Yeah. So without taking sides or without mincing words, at the end of the day, you are quite apt in what you have just said. Borrowing is not the issue, if you ask me. It's what those borrowings are used for. If I borrow, if I enter into a loan transaction that is due in 20 years, for instance, like some of the loans we have with China, and I am sure that those assets, I've done my analysis, and I'm sure that those assets are going to get me way more than the principal plus interest portions of those loans, even in the 20 years or maybe just a little bit after. Then that's a loan that's worth taking. So borrowing is not the issue, but like you said, if I borrow to pay salaries, that's an expenditure that's going to be consumed in the year. Then what that would mean that I would need to put my hands into another revenue stream to pay back that loan when it becomes due. So borrowing has never been the issue. It's about putting it into productive use and using these funds efficiently, ensuring that it ends up being for the betterment of Nigerians and not enriching a very few people.
Yes, when we talk about issues like this, we now say we need to look inwards, and we expect state governments and, of course, the federal government to look inwards. And then the issue of tax comes in. We want to look inwards and see how we can. How well do you think the government is doing that? Even the state governments, how well do you think they are helping to increase IGR? It's key at this time.
Well, Tolu, I'm sure you know of the what do I say, the latest gist in town.
Yes, so
everybody's
VAT.
talking about exactly. So everyone is looking for, how can I protect my revenue base? How can I increase IGRs? But like I always say, I always tell people we need to be careful when doing this, to ensure that we do not truncate investments at the end of the day, to ensure that we do not
All right, then we're trying to again reconnect with Mr. Latishe, but there you look at these figures and it gets so scary at times when you think of debt service that at the time was even more than 80%. It's a lot. It's a lot when you look at it. At this time where countries are still recovering from the effect of COVID-19 and the third wave are still all around the corner. So it is important that issues like this are addressed. Mr. Latishe is back. Mr. Latishe, you can take it from where you stopped because we lost connection again.
Oh, sorry. So I don't know where you lost me particularly, but I was just trying to say that there is a need for us to balance these things at the end of the day, because these revenues are needed by the government, the federal and the state governments, to stimulate the economy, to execute their policies. But on the other hand, overtaxing the people, or multiplicity of taxes, or uncertainty in
Okay, let's take another break, and when we return, we'll see if we can talk to Mr. Latishe, and if we can't, we'll move on the show. It's Your Business Nigeria. Stay with us.
Introducing the judges for the TVC Communications Women Network Female Debate Championship. Professor Abigail Ogwezi Undusika, first female professor, Department of Mass Communication, University of Lagos. Leko Otufodunri, Executive Director, Media Career Development Network. Joke Silva, renowned actress and co-founder, Lufodo Academy of Performing Arts, and Stella Dean Jacob, Director News, TVC News. The four judges will be reviewing, judging, and shortlisting students throughout the stages in the competition. For sponsorship and more information, visit www.tvccommunications.tv/TWN Female Debate Championship. TVC Female Debate Championship, encouraging young Nigerian girls to speak up for nation building.
All right, thank you for staying with us and accommodating all of these challenges we have today. It's a general issue all around us here, but we're looking up to address it. Mr. Latishe, if you can hear me, what's your projection moving on? Our reserve seems to be looking good, adding a little bit of flesh to what we've had on ground, and we also expect more to come in looking at all of this. So what's your projection for Nigeria as we move on in the year?
Thanks, Tolu. I'm an optimistic person. My projections are always going to be optimistic. But at the end of the day, it's only when we implement these plans that we can get to where we want. I think we have the brains. I think we have the people, both in government and out of government, in the different sectors, to get us to where we need to be. We have, like I said earlier, some new policies that I think would help. Petroleum continues to be a major source of revenue, and the Petroleum Industry Act, when implemented fully, is going to go a long way to in attracting investors, even existing investors that we have already. We also have all these policies coming up, but at the end of the day, we need implementation, and we just talked about taxes, ensuring certainty in our taxes, so that we do not discourage even those that are already investing or those that are already trying to have some revenue stimulating activities in the country. So we have a long way to go, and it's going to take the efforts of both the government and the developmental sectors and all sectors basically to get to that promised land. But I'm optimistic that we can do it as a people. It's not far from our reach.
So I'm just thinking, before I let you go, what more we can also do aside tax? What more can we do to generate revenue internally? Thinking out of the box now. I don't know if you've done anything around that.
Yeah. So like we said, taxes will always be a major one that a low-hanging fruit for the government to look after. I don't think we've even exhausted.
All right, Manager Tax Regulatory Services at Deloitte in Touch, Mr. Joseph Latishe there. Thank you very much for your time on the show.